Welcome.
Welcome to the Baltimore Youth State of Vaccination event. My name is Sierra Gladden, and I'm a sophomore here at Johns Hopkins University right here in Baltimore. I'm also a video production intern for Baltimore Core.
My name is Michelle Mokaya, and I'm currently a junior at Johns Hopkins University studying chemical and biomolecular engineering.
We're excited to moderate this youth-led event to provide accurate information about COVID and vaccinations. We appreciate your participation.
This event is being brought to you in partnership with Charm TV, the Mayor's Office, Baltimore City Public Schools, the Health Department, the Rockefeller Foundation, Open Society Institute, Baltimore Core, and Black Girls Vote. These organizations are working together to provide Baltimore City youth and parents with up-to-date information about COVID-19 and the vaccine. Tonight's event is the second of a three-part series of virtual events that will be hosted to ensure Baltimore City residents are informed about new COVID and vaccine data, facts, and resources that are available around the city.
Now a message from the CEO of Baltimore City Public Schools, Dr. Sonia Santelises.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sonia Brookins Santelises, Chief Executive Officer of Baltimore City Public Schools. It is my pleasure to welcome each of you to this special event. Each of you is seeking ways to stay safe during the COVID-19 pandemic. Actions like wearing masks or face coverings, monitoring your health symptoms, and hand washing are terrific first steps. But according to health experts, getting vaccinated is the best way to reduce your chances of being hospitalized or dying from COVID. Today's event is important because getting vaccinated is not as simple as just accepting a shot. Many of you have questions or have heard different opinions about the vaccine. With the help from our partners at the Open Society Institute, we're providing a space for you to learn more and become more educated about the vaccine. If nothing else, it is our hope you'll share this correct, factual information with your peers and community. Each person that gets vaccinated in Baltimore City reduces the spread of COVID-19. This means we all achieve our goal of being safe, including at school. Again, thank you for participating today. Please continue to be well and stay safe.
Did you know? Here's some COVID and vaccine-related information that we've been hearing. Are they fact or cap? We're about to find out. So, fact or cap? Social distancing is a hoax?
I think it's cap.
Of course, this is cap. It's still important to social distance by at least 6 feet or more and wear a mask, as it's 80 to 100% effective in slowing the spread of COVID-19, according to a study by the National Institute of Health.
Also be sure to cover your cough, wash your hands, and stay home if you're feeling sick. Everything helps to slow the spread of COVID-19. Next up, fact or cap. After getting the vaccine, you'll transform into a gremlin or a zombie.
I think we all know how ridiculous this is. Obviously, this is cap. Won't transform into anything after getting the vaccine.
Yeah, and according to the CDC, COVID vaccines will help protect you from getting COVID-19. You might have a few side effects, but those are totally normal signs that your body's building protection.
Yeah, and you might feel feverish or sore for a few days, kind of like I did after I got my vaccine, but that's just your body becoming 60 to 90% more protected against the impacts of COVID-19.
And trust me, if we all turned into zombies after being vaccinated, you'd see a lot more gremlins in your classes or at the mall.
And lastly, fact or cap. Any kind of schooling changes during COVID stresses parents out.
I think that might actually be a fact.
I think you might be right. According to the U.S. Department of Labor, a study showed that about 58% of mothers reported that any stress due to coronavirus has negatively affected their mental health.
Now, this one is definitely a fact. Shout out to all the parents, especially parents of Baltimore City youth. Hey, Mom, we see what you're doing and how you've held us down throughout the pandemic.
All of you deserve a big round of applause and a long break. And this concludes our segment on Did You Know? Fact or Cap?
Next up, we want to highlight some Baltimore City youth voices and how they've been impacted by COVID.
Hi, I'm Daniel Perrin. I'm a junior at the Park School of Baltimore.
Hi, my name is Chloe Murray, and I'm a senior at St. Paul's School for Girls.
My name is Kanika Smith, and during COVID, I was working in closed facilities as a one-on-one instructional aide. Then things began to shift, and I started working in community service. The schools I worked in was Woodburn Closed Facility School, and I'm working with a bridge program from Anne Arundel County. Before then, it was Baltimore City Schools solely.
When COVID first hit, I think the biggest and most jarring change immediately was the lack of being able to go to school. And I'm always somebody who's been kind of dependent on more constant social interaction, both with people of my own age at school, but also with my teachers and other adults that are important to me. One Friday we were at school, and then the next Monday we weren't able to go. We weren't able to go back until a year and a half later. But another big change for me was not being able to see my grandparents. I've grown up really close to all four of my grandparents, and they've been huge, important factors in my mental health and my growing up, and I just wasn't able to see them for almost all of COVID, and that had a really negative impact on my mental health and my happiness levels. And from the beginning, I was somebody who took the pandemic seriously in terms of staying social distance and masks. So when the vaccine came out and it was really being authorized by all the scientists at various different places that I personally trust, I lived in North Carolina, and so it was being authorized and kind of recommended by all the scientists at the university in my town. And I have family members who are all scientists, and basically everybody that I trust in terms of the community was recommending this vaccine. And it seemed at the time, and it still seems like it is the way out of this horrible pandemic that has caused suffering for me and way worse suffering for most other people. So I knew that was the case, and I knew that I'd be helping my own life if I got vaccinated, but I'd also be helping everybody else get back to what they wanted to get back to.
The most immediate impact that COVID hitting the world in the United States had on me was that I have been working with a partner diligently for months on this Harvard Global Health Conference that I applied to and was accepted into, and I was doing a research project on it. And I was supposed to go with my group from school to present my project at the campus of Harvard University a week after COVID hit. So COVID hit March 13th, and the next weekend after that, I was supposed to present this project that I had been working on for months. And I was really excited to get to meet with people globally who were all coming to the campus and to make new connections and to learn more about the health world. And I did get to learn about the health world, but in a different way, because coronavirus hit and we all had to start quarantining in our homes. And so I was upset that I didn't get to present my project in person. As well, I'm also a very people person. I'm very social, and I enjoy school because I get to see my friends every day and my teachers and interact with people. And when COVID hit that Friday, I was heartbroken that for months I didn't get to finish out the end of my sophomore year. And then in my junior year at school, I wasn't able to start right away in person, and we had a hybrid schedule. And this year, I'm glad that as a senior, things are finally starting to get back to normal. And I'm enjoying our traditions again and being able to see those teachers and friends and family members that I had not been able to see for fear of the coronavirus.
I decided to join because I wanted to be able to have extensive knowledge and actual professional knowledge from an actual expert, to have that personal meeting where I get to go back and tell my community, like, hey, I didn't just get my information online. Like, I spoke to an actual health profession who's worked very closely around this. It's factual because it's coming from someone who's done a lot of study on it. I'm still doing my research to get the vaccine myself. So to be able to have someone I can talk face to face with and get knowledge about can help me in my personal life, and to be able to take back into my community and into my family. Our whole project is based around the vaccine. So to be able to add that to our website and be like, we actually talked to a profession. This isn't just something that we came up with. We actually have people and have real resources that we could connect to, and we could potentially connect people to our community with.
As you know, especially in the Black community, it's a lot of worries about this vaccine and if it's safe for us and things of that nature. And I just feel like this opportunity to be able to get these questions answered and our concerns heard is just too big to let pass. So I would definitely say I'm looking forward to getting more information out of this opportunity and some clarification and knowledge. I'm educating people on the vaccine, but I also want to learn as well, so I can pass it on to my people.
When I was called back to go work with Baltimore City schools as a one-on-one assistant, that role changed completely. Because of the COVID restrictions, sorry to say, it was no children in the classroom. Everything was being taught virtual. No children was there in the particular classroom I was working in because I solely worked with children with autism. So children was online preparing for the next week for on-person. High school students, middle school students, that looked really different. While those students like to, be close to one another, touching each other, giving each other pounds, anything they do had to really wash your hands, had to really sanitize your hands, keep your mask up. Being in that particular environment, I was a helping aide. It was too many outbreaks happening from one to the next. We really aren't told what is happening and who was or what was. It was more so, hey, look, you need to go get this test. It was an outbreak. We can't give you too much information. It's best that you go get tested. Then everybody has to go in quarantine. So we was practicing these quarantine procedures, not just in school, but at home as well. So it was cleaning up, sanitizing, testing, checking and monitoring your temperature. So these students lived on site. They lived in their residence. So they were there from their residence to the school. They had to do all these kind of tests and check. When going back to school after quarantine, each time the class looked different. We had to rotate. We had to make sure seats were like they were. So that was my choice because of those things that was going on while I got vaccinated. It don't matter what ages that you are German, you need to learn how to wash your hands. You need to learn how to disinfect. And we want to make sure that we keep those germs out of the area because you never know someone's immune system. You never know it.
I graduated from Gallaudet University in May 2020. How the coronavirus impacted me? When my graduation finished, the coronavirus was starting. The process was hard. My plan was to work for Uber. But the influence and impact it would have had on my family. So that didn't let me work. I would be around a lot of people. So that made me change my plan and move to a different place so I could work and start my real life. I feel comfortable with the vaccine shot because I know a lot of people were getting it. Plus, at Gallaudet University, in order for me to work there, it's required to get the shot. Secondly, I realized to move forward, I should get the vaccine shot. I didn't feel scared because I saw a lot of people that were getting the shot and were fine. In my experience, getting the vaccine shot, I didn't get sick or anything. With the second shot, nothing. Only felt a little sore in my arm.
As young people, we hear and see a lot of myths surrounding COVID and the vaccine, just like we covered in our Did You Know Factor Cap segment. In our next segment, Convos on COVID, some Baltimore City high school students will be posing pressing pandemic questions to a public health expert. Check it out.
Welcome to the Baltimore Youth State of Vaccination, conversations about COVID. My name is Dr. Panagis Viliatsatos, also known as Dr. G, and I'm a physician at the Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, specifically in pulmonary, meaning lungs, and critical care medicine. And today, I get the honor of answering questions from this city's next generation of leaders. I get to answer questions from young adults and youth who want to know what's true and what's not true, and what role they can play in helping us end this pandemic. So with that said, let's turn it over to some of Baltimore City's youth ambassadors from various schools throughout the city and county in order to understand what's real and what's not. And again, how can these youth, this next generation of leaders, help us end the pandemic? So let me begin by introducing a few who will go ahead and share their name and the high school that they're representing or middle school and take it from there. So first on my list, Soul.
Hi, I'm Soul, spelled Soul, like soul that's in your body. I'm 20 years old. I am an alumni from Mergenthaler Vocational Technical High School. I graduated in 2019. I'm a singer, songwriter, activist.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Soul. That was great. Next, let's go to Daniel.
Hi everyone, I'm Daniel Perrin and I'm a junior at the Park School of Baltimore.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Daniel. Up next, let's go to Allison. Allison?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Allison Vasquez. I'm in 8th grade at Pikeville Middle School.
Fantastic, Allison. Fantastic. You guys are amazing. Next, Carrington.
My name is Carrington. I'm a sophomore at Bard Early College High School.
Fantastic, Carrington. By the way, quick shout out, all of you have fantastic backgrounds. Clearly, you guys have learned how to spice up the backgrounds during this pandemic. That's amazing. And last but certainly not least, Chloe.
Hi, my name is Chloe, and I'm a senior at St. Paul's School for Girls.
Excellent. So we're here today again to talk about what's been on the agenda for the last year and a half, right? The pandemic that's taught you guys also how to make awesome backgrounds. So with that said, we're here to talk about COVID, to talk about the vaccines, to talk about how do we get out of this pandemic, but specifically to learn what you all need to know in order to know how to best appropriately act, meaning what's true, what's not, and get rid of that misinformation, right? Because misinformation does nothing, it just misleads. We don't need that at this moment. We need to move forward, to put our best selves forward, to promote health and prevent disease. So with that said, the floor is yours. What's on the mind of the youth and young adults today?
Thank you so much for being here. The first question that I want to ask is something that I've heard a lot, which is that getting the vaccine actually gives you COVID in the process of making you vaccinated. And so I've heard that a lot as a major fear about the vaccine, and I really want to know your response.
Right. No, it's a great question. So I'm going to answer it in two ways, right? Because there are vaccines who give you the actual virus that you're trying to prevent, but like a weakened version of it. Like it's not going to do anything. It's not going to be lethal. It's just meant to kind of stimulate your immune system a little bit. And then there's another way that I've heard this asked, because it's like, well, COVID gives you fevers and chills, and the vaccine seems to give you fevers and chills. So the way I'm going to answer it is, one, the current vaccines that we have today that are FDA approved, either full FDA approval or for the emergency use, none of them actually give you the actual virus that causes COVID-19. The Pfizer and Moderna, they give you actually the genetic material, which is cool. It's like sci-fi come to real life, right? And it gives you that in order to code for a protein that the virus has. While the Johnson & Johnson actually gives you the protein from SARS-CoV-2. So none of the vaccines at this moment here in the United States give you the actual virus for you to ultimately have COVID-19. Because remember, COVID-19 is the disease from the virus. Now, with that said, the vaccine boosts your immune system, right? It revs it up. You know what also revs up your immune system? Going to the gym, right? You go to the gym, you're gonna get short of breath, you're gonna sweat a lot, your muscles are gonna ache. That might also happen with a vaccine. It revs up your immune system. So you might be a little bit uncomfortable, but all of it is to sharpen that immune system, make it smarter, and to prevent you from getting COVID-19. In addition to preventing others from also getting it and helping us end this pandemic. So that's a great question, Daniel, and one I'm hoping provided more clarity. So the answer is, it doesn't give you the virus, it doesn't give you COVID-19. They have some similar symptoms, but very short-lived. So great question with Daniel. Daniel starting off big, so I'm excited to tackle some more questions. Who else has a fun question, an important question to ask?
Hi, I actually had a question that I wanted to share next. I wanted to ask you, is a vaccine for COVID effective in your body right away?
So is it effective right away? So not right away, not immediately, right? So once the vaccine gets into you, it begins to rev up that immune system. And that revving up the immune system to form the amount of antibodies that we need can take a couple of days. We usually say anywhere from 7 to 14 days. So once you get it, that's awesome, but it takes a little bit of time. Again, think about that gym analogy I told you. You go to one gym session, you're like, I feel great. Right, you're going to need a little bit more before you're physically fit and ready to go. Same thing here. The vaccine, once it gets into you, it revs up that immune system, but the amount of antibodies that we feel are sufficient for you to be protected against COVID still can take anywhere from 7 to 14 days. So once you get it, you got another week or two before you're fully safe from this virus. So yes, we always want to be able to share that, because once you get it, doesn't mean, hey, tonight I'm going to go to that party and just hang out with face mask down and just have fun. No, my friend, not yet. Great question, Chloe. All right, so we got 2 amazing questions right off the bat. This is amazing. Keep them coming. Who's up next? Yes, Allison with a hand raise.
So I have one. What is the percentage of information in the news or social media can be trusted? Because I've seen like a lot of things on social media, like on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, like everywhere, saying this and that happens to you with the vaccine and stuff like that. And I don't know if I could trust it or not. So I don't know what's the information to be trusted.
So let me. That's a great question. Right, and I can tell you, I don't have a specific percentage, but let me give you guys a little bit of an insight of how to try to identify what's not true and what probably is true. Like going and learning science is by far one of the most humbling things, right? Because Mother Nature is complicated. It is complicated. If you guys have ever taken a science class, you're probably leaving being like, whoa, that was a lot. Are you kidding me? From the chemicals, the bonds, and so forth, it's complicated. It's very complicated. And even fighting this virus, right? Doctors, your nurses, your scientists, we were learning in real time as much as we could about this virus, which means sometimes we would say in the morning was wrong by the evening, right? Because that's what science does, it humbles you. Because as you learn more and more and more, and you realize sometimes some of your early hypotheses were wrong. That's what makes us humbling, right? We have to constantly say that Mother Nature is very smart, we're trying to learn in real time. So Allison, the way I want to answer your question is, if you come across something that seems to be a very simple answer to very complicated stuff, it's probably false. It's probably not real. And that's one of our frustrations to some extent with social media. Social media by its very nature is meant to be very quick information, right? Twitter, you got 250 characters. If those 250 characters provide a very simple solution to this complicated problem, it's probably not true. So what I would say, Allison, if you come across things that got your attention, because that's what misinformation does. Misinformation is supposed to be easy to understand, comprehensible, and pulls at the person reading it. Science has never done that. Like, I don't think you opened up your bio book and be like, whoa, cell walls, talk to me more about this, right? It doesn't do that. So that's what I would encourage. If something seems too good to be true, it's probably false. So what I would strongly encourage is if you come across information, talk to a parent, talk to your teachers, your science teachers, they love this stuff. Or talk to Dr. G, shoot him an email, like, hey, Dr. G, came across this. So look at the websites for your health department here in Baltimore City, as well as other places like the CDC and the NIH. That's where we can constantly have that information. But I will say right off the bat, science I think is cool, but keep in mind, it's complicated. And so that's why we kind of struggle at times in taking these complex things into kind of bite-sized knowledge. So my answer to you, Allison, is I think we have the right information out there, battling another pandemic of misinformation. And one thing that you can help us is ending both of them, the virus and the misinformation. So if you're coming across information, you're like, hey, this seems too good to be true, probably is, and let us know. Does that make sense, my friend? Fantastic. Strong word. Great question, Allison. That's a great question. All right, excellent. So who's next? Who's next with a great question?
Hello, Dr. G. Thank you for being on here with us. So my question was, what does it feel like to get vaccinated? Because I think one of like the main trends or like talk of the town is that you turn into a zombie after you get vaccinated. That's kind of been like a meme that's been going around all around social media. And also like, is the downtime different between different age groups? So if someone is a little bit older, like, is their downtime maybe 3 to 4 days versus someone who may be like 12 to like 16, maybe a day or two. So I want to know, like, is there a difference? Does it matter of the age difference? And yeah, that's a question.
I love it. I love these questions. So first, let me just backtrack. So I'm going to ask you a question. What if I told you I have something that's going to make you healthy, but it's going to get your muscles to really ache? You're going to probably sweat a lot, and you're going to get really short of breath. Do you want to do that or not?
I would be hesitant.
Yeah, but that's like running a marathon, right? That's like just going to the gym, right? That's like really vigorous, a bad Pilates class, a Peloton class, right? That's exercise, right? We constantly will put our bodies through something because we know the end result, even if it gets some aches and pains, you're going to get healthier from it, right? And so what I always prepare people, a vaccine does the same thing. It revs up the immune system, just like that's what exercise actually does too. Exercise makes your immune system stronger. So when you get a vaccine, 1 out of 2 people feel nothing, and that other 1 out of 2 people feel something. So those 1 out of 2 who feels nothing, my goodness, it's like flipping a coin. It's hard to predict. But for others, they may feel short of breath, they may feel some chills, and they may feel some fevers. Some of them may feel it for about a few hours. Some of them may have it linger for up to 48 hours, meaning it doesn't start in 48 hours, meaning it started and lasts for a day or two. For the most that we can tell, it's still kind of hit or miss of who gets it and who doesn't. It's hard for me to ever even predict it. Like, hey, like if you're young, maybe you'll get it, maybe you're not. So I would still say it's kind of a coin flip for each age group. One thing that I often say is like, have you ever gotten the flu vaccine? And if they're like, yes, well, how did you feel afterwards? Ooh, not good. Oh, I felt fine. That usually can be a reasonable surrogate to say, well, if you didn't feel fine with the flu, you may not feel fine with this shot as well, this vaccine. So all I would say to anyone that's getting it is like, I probably would try to take the next day off from any work. I did that. I was so glad I did because people were kind of warning, and I was one of the first people who got a vaccine back in December 2020. So I was like, all right, fine, I'll take the next day off. And I'm glad I did. I felt miserable, and then it went away. But that's what I try to prepare people for, is there's plenty of things that we go through for health to get our bodies stronger. That's what, for instance, exercise does, that you're going to be fine with a little bit of aches and pains because you know it's short-lived, a day or two at the most. So great question. 1 out of 2 people will feel nothing. The other 1 out of 2 may feel something, but it's very short-lived. Now, with that said, to date, and I'm going to look at my notes to date, no one has turned into a zombie. I promise you. So we are okay there. We are okay. No, and if you see someone on The Walking Dead, they're just actors. So to date, no one has turned into a zombie. Great question though, Sol. I really appreciate that because it's one of my favorite things to answer, just to prepare people for this.
Thank you so much for answering. And yes, the zombie memes have gotten so out of control. It's crazy.
It is. Well, maybe it's because it's Halloween. Maybe around Christmas, people are like, it turned me into an elf. We'll see. Great question though. Who's next?
I actually want to jump in next. Dr. G, I really appreciate your funny anecdote about the gym and the zombie. It's really spicing things up. But I wanted to ask, will the vaccine shots that we get now still be effective in our bodies years from now?
So that's a great question. And one it's hard to truly say yes or no, right? I can tell you it has the potential. So let's backtrack a little bit. When we come up with vaccines, but for the most part, you have to keep in mind, we tend to study them in a short period, right? In about a year or so, right? Because what we're trying to see is, can we get an immune response depending on the infection we're trying to fight, like say coronavirus in this case, or say the flu. What we're trying to see is, can we at least make sure that you get 6 months worth of the antibodies? That's it. That's always our goal. And for some, that 6 months may be enough to say, yeah, you might get it lifelong. You might have that protection forever. For others, naturally, it may just go away. But whenever we do these research studies, we try to aim for that 6 month mark because it's a reasonable surrogate to say we probably will have them for the foreseeable future. Now, we've already realized for many populations, that's not the case. Your antibodies start to fall, especially those who are of an older age, right? 75 plus or 70 plus. That's just naturally, those antibodies always just go down regardless of how you got them, whether it's a vaccine or natural immunity. So will these antibodies stay with us forever? For some, yeah. For others, probably not. But what the research shows for us is that we know we can at least make sure that they stay in you for 6 good months. And again, what we're hoping was that was enough time to end this pandemic. Still lingering around. So potential with those boosters for another 6 months may be reasonable enough until this pandemic is behind us. So Chloe, it's a great question. one that, it's still hard to know, like we can get you a permanent antibody depending on the infection we're trying to fight with. But what we try to strive for is, can we at least at a minimum get 6 months worth of protection? Does that help, Chloe?
Yes, and I actually wanted to ask, do you think that years from now we'll still be needing to get booster shots to help our immunity against COVID, outliers still happening in years from now?
Right. So if you asked me this question last year, I would say I think it's possible, but not probable. I think we'll get out of this with a vaccine. Now I'm in the different mindset of it's probably going to be needed. I think we're going to be doing well against COVID. We're no longer be a pandemic. And I think it'll just be a regional issue here and there, some spots. But the vaccine will be offered just like the flu shot, and we'll have to get it every year. That's my suspicion. But again, I'm answering that with the data that we have now after a year plus of doing it. So that's a great question. One to prepare everyone. Shots in arms may stick around. But again, we talked about earlier getting your immune system be strong, right? And that's important. But the vaccines do something much better. It makes your immune system smart. It actually knows how to beat the virus. It's like if the Ravens showed up on Sundays and had no idea who they're going to play, you're probably going to lose. I mean it. They could be the best fit that they could be. If they have no idea who they're about to play, never read the playbooks, didn't watch the film, you're going to lose. That's your immune system. If it's strong, it does you no good against an enemy it doesn't know. The vaccines make it smart. The vaccines are like the Ravens watching plays all week, preparing for that team and knowing how to blitz, knowing how to throw. So how long we can keep that in you? We aim for 6 months. And like I said, it probably would become potentially an annual thing. Great questions, Chloe.
Thank you, I understand that.
All right, who's up next? This is fantastic.
Hello, Dr. D. My name is Sydney Johnson, and I'm 16 years old and currently a junior at the Baltimore Polytechnic Institute. And my question and concern is, do the vaccine potentially have some type of effect on fertility for women? For me, I'm not vaccinated at this point because it is a general concern for my mom that I won't be able to have kids when I get older, and she won't be able to have grandkids, and she just doesn't want to take that experience away from our family. So that's just one of the major things that I've heard about this vaccine. So as a young woman, will it affect me in my future?
It's a great question, Sydney, honestly. And the thing is, I always want to make it clear that, making the decision to get a vaccine or not, should still come down to having a great open dialogue, to share your concerns and share your thoughts. And at the end of the day, take them home, talk to your family, and try to prioritize that as best as you can for yourself. So let's actually look at a different side of that question. Can COVID make people infertile? The answer is massively yes, for both men and women. This disease robs people of the ability to reproduce in the future. We've seen that countless times in men especially, which I know you brought it up for yourself as a woman, but men, it is massive. It really impacts the circulation to the genital urinary organs that they have. So it can result in infertility in men greatly. In addition to women, right? It really rocks the ovarian system, the genital urinary system for women as well. So COVID in of itself, this disease, you may come out of it alive. You survived it because I'm young, but you may have consequences of infertility moving forward. And remember, we're still in a pandemic, so that means this thing is still around. Now, the opposite side of that is, what about the vaccine? Any fertility issues there, which is a great question. So when we went through the studies for this, out of the research, the 50,000 plus people that took it for Pfizer, another 50,000 that took it for Moderna, and another 50,000 took it for Johnson & Johnson, fertility issues never came up as a side effect. And then in the real world, because this is more important, this is only, it's 50,000 people, that's enough to fill a Ravens game, but it's not the whole population. I got to know about me. In the real world examples, what we actually strive for, especially women, is because one of the groups that we don't really jump into and say, we got to study you, are those who are pregnant, because we kind of lay off until we can prove it's safe in non-pregnant people. Now, what was fascinating is when people got the vaccine, the rates of pregnancy were no different during the pandemic as they were pre-pandemic. And when studying just exclusively these women who are pregnant, meaning they signed up, they were like, yep, I'm getting the shot, you watch me as I go through my pregnancy. Everything was great. So meaning fertility rates stayed the same and pregnancies were fantastic. I can tell you the opposite is true though. if you're pregnant and get COVID unvaccinated, those are some of the sickest patients we have. Actually, they have as high of a mortality rate as like an elderly individual who also has high mortality rates as that. So I love this question because you're right. It's not one of the things that we jumped into to kind of review in the research world immediately, but it's one that we've been able to answer after about 20 plus million people got these vaccines in the first year, and then some, here in the mid-Atlantic, in the East Coast. Pregnancy rates haven't dropped. People who wanted to get pregnant continue to get pregnant, and there has been no complications with women when they got pregnant with their pregnancies. So it seems to be an overwhelming yes towards safety. So again, this is what I can share with you. Sydney, it's a great question, one I'm hoping you go home, you digest, and you ultimately prioritize this for yourself. But it's a great question and one I know it's incredibly meaningful. So while you want to rescue the world now, you want to know it doesn't come at a consequence of your own humanity moving forward, and I respect that.
Dr. G.
All right, you guys are amazing. Like, I'm pumped knowing you're the next generation because I feel like I'm in good hands. All right, so who's next?
Doctor, so a big question that I have as a member of the African American community is how are the health officials and experts addressing the hesitancy within the African American community about the vaccination due to historical issues with experience in our people?
Of course, and Karen, that's an incredibly important question, and one that let me backtrack real quick, right? So the health departments, in addition to some other hospitals, right, we've all been guilty of really impacting certain populations in unethical ways, and that history should never be forgotten. It should never be forgotten. With that said, the future can be written right now, right? And I'm hoping the way we are going into the communities and talking to the communities is A, owning up to what the past was, and B, discussing we're all part of a new future together. So what do you need for us to earn that trust, maintain that trust, and move forward? And I can tell you, being part of the health department in some activities collaboratively, as well as my own institution here at Hopkins, right? We work with a group called Medicine for the Greater Good. Before the pandemic, we went into the communities to hear them, to talk to them. St. Matthew's at Turner Station to Bethel Synagogue up in Pikesville. All we said was, we just want to earn your trust. We have no agenda. We want to promote health and prevent disease. And that trust building, a decade in the making, when the pandemic hit, we pulled at that strings of trust and were able to go ahead and launch the appropriate interventions to help them stay safe. Now I say this because other communities weren't as fortunate. So we had to earn their trust in real time before they even said, yeah, we'll listen to what you have to say to prevent COVID. And regardless of how that trust is earned, I'm hoping the ingredients of that trust, which means presence, means listening, means being aware of the past, never goes away. And we continuously have to earn the trust of the community every year, every moment, because that should never be forgotten. So, Kieran, I would say this. We're actively out in the community, talking to the community, listening to the community, which is important, and being aware of what the past was. And at the same time, we're letting the community dictate the pace, as well as what the future looks. That's key here. The autonomy should be on the community. And if they want that partnership, which we hope they do, because that's the only way we can make the biggest impact, we're ready for that. Does that help, Carrington?
Yes, thank you.
Fantastic, my friend. And keep in mind, you're part of that future too. So that's how we stay grounded. Don't forget the past, never forget it. Because if we do, we're much more likely then to repeat it. We can learn from the past. So I love that question, Carrington, because the fact that you're asking that question, when I was your age, I didn't even think of that. So the fact that you're asking that question, I love, because to me, it means you're ready to help us write a new future, one that's dictated by the community. So thank you for that. All right, who's next? Man, you guys, I felt like that was the best question. Then you guys asked another great question. Like, you guys, in high school, I was just worried about what was on MTV. And you guys are sitting here being asked to end a pandemic. Is MTV still on? Is that a thing? You guys know what that, okay. Like, how am I dating myself? But yeah, you guys are like literally out here being like, Dr. D, we want to know how to end a pandemic. And I was sitting here looking at TV Guide, finding MTV channels. That you may not have no idea what that is. So with that said, back to you guys.
Thanks, Dr. G. I have a question. My question is, where is the best place or places to find really accurate and strong and important information about the pandemic and also about the vaccination? What are some good suggestions you have?
No, I love this. And keep this in mind. Like, this is going to be challenging when I say this. I mean, the best places, one is your own health department, right? Baltimore City's and the state of Maryland's. We try to stay updated with that information because the great thing I love about the departments here, both Baltimore City and the state of Maryland, is it takes the science, but it makes it relevant for our region, right? Like, that's key here. So it tells you the numbers, what we're doing, and certain updates. And, if you want to get the vaccine, here's information on it. Here's the place you can go get it. Key. With that said, if you scale it back a little bit, the CDC, the NIH, and the FDA are all great places to go to in the World Wide Web to continue learning this information. I worked at the NIH for 4 years, right? I met Dr. Fauci before he was known as Dr. Fauci. These are men and women who devote themselves to the promise of science in order to promote health and prevent disease. And I promise you, it's not the most attractive thing to read that stuff there, right? It doesn't grab your attention. When Allison was discussing, hey, misinformation. Yeah, misinformation is much more appealing. That's the intention. It's meant to be really easy to read and digest. Science, science is not like a Taylor Swift album. You're like, yeah, I'm in love with it. So with that said, those websites will also be ideal to go to. And then from a global perspective, I've always enjoyed the World Health Organization's information. With that said, the last thing I would also suggest is also just talk to your own peers, hear what they're saying, because sometimes they may be like, you're going to walk away as a youth ambassador and say, hey, I got some information to share. And also your adults, so your science teachers, your teachers, your principals, these are all great people to have conversations. Because again, those trusted places of resources is great, but at the end of the day, science puts out facts with the hope of action. You guys are literally the place where that action will happen. So what I would encourage is, as you get this information, talk to your community, talk to your peers, talk to your teachers. How do we do this? How do we do that? At the end of the day, what I'm hoping you're asking yourselves, right, is to do what no other generation has been asked to do before. Think about that. From Seoul to Carrington to you to Sydney, you're being asked to end a pandemic. No other youth generation's ever been asked that. So when you write your personal statements for college or high school, you better write, no big deal. I just helped end a pandemic. Accept me to your school. So that's what I would say. Talk to your loved ones, talk to your families, talk to everyone. But those websites should be kind of your bedrock of trusted information. Well, I want to thank everyone for being open and transparent in our conversation today. It was important to know what is on the mind of the youth and young adults. More importantly, to know what they need to know in order to help us end this pandemic. I love it. Great conversation. So hopefully this conversation about COVID has answered many questions, calmed some concerns, and hopefully has combated common misinformation. To learn more information about COVID and vaccines, please visit the resources and the websites we discussed earlier. Finally, I also want to give a shout out to my own high school, Cabot Hall. Since we were talking about high schools and so forth, remember that's the most important Baltimore question when you get asked. What school did you go to? Represent your high school powerfully. So with that said, thank you so much.
Dr. G, I just want to say, wow, thank you so much for even allowing us to take up some of your time and ask us some of our questions and concerns. With the answers you've given me and everyone else on this call, I'll be able to take it back to my community and my family, and I cannot thank you enough. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for answering my question about the African American community. I know many of us would be very appreciative, and we just love that you answer our questions, so thank you.
Thank you, Dr. G, for taking the time to talk with us. I had a really good time today learning and hearing your opinions and feeling better about the vaccine and COVID in general. Thank you again.
Thank you, Dr. G, for taking some of your time out, because I really needed to be informed about the things I see on the internet. But thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. G, for answering all of our questions very honestly and very empathetically. I appreciate you taking out your time to really sit with us and talk with us about the very wavering and hard subjects that surround COVID. So thank you so much.
Dr. G, thank you so much for all of your time and energy that you spent on the COVID fight from the beginning, and especially now and taking the time to talk with us. I know we all really appreciate it, and thank you so much.
Also, if you would like to get more information on the vaccine and COVID in general, please check out me and Soul on here's website, Voices on Vax.
As we close out the Baltimore Youth State of the Vaccination event, here are some resources and upcoming events to look out for. If you want more information on youth-related COVID resources, the Voices on Vax website is bringing Baltimore's youth voices to the conversation about the COVID vaccine in a whole new way.
And coming soon is a citywide website that'll have the latest COVID and vaccine data, resources, and vaccination clinics available for all to use in the city.
Lastly, be on the lookout for the last in the 3-part series of events coming later this fall.
Michelle, I don't know about you, but I had an amazing time hosting the Baltimore Youth State of Vaccination event with you today. We appreciate all who've tuned in to hear what the youth are saying about COVID and vaccinations. Stay safe
and stay well.